thank you for being here. And listen, I can't tell you the honor it is for me personally to be back with some of my colleagues from the Freedom Caucus. I have absolutely the utmost respect and love for these who are here and those who they represent in the Freedom Caucus. They really are, in so many ways, the backbone of our entire conservative movement in Washington and as a result throughout our country. So let me introduce, on the far end we have Byron Donalds. He's from Florida. Got a few fans around here, Byron. He's from Florida's 19th District, a tremendous leader. I was just telling someone, Byron is a master of going on the adversarial news. He was on MSNBC last night. He goes in there and does a phenomenal job getting our voice out. He's on the Oversight Committee as well as the Financial Services. Next to him, Chip Roy from Texas. Chip is, he heads up the policy leads the policy discussion in Freedom Caucus. He's also on the Judiciary, the Budget, and the Critical Rules Committee. Of course, formerly the Chief of Staff for Senator Cruz and Assistant AG for the state of Texas. So, Chip, great to have you. And then Mary Miller, she was with us last night. Mary's from the 15th District of Illinois and serves on the Ag Committee as well as Education and Workforce. Mary is a master at family issues, life issues, all of these are, but Mary is here because of those reasons and the battles that she has been involved with regarding family. So welcome each of you. We've got several things that we want to cover. Let's begin with the obvious elephant in the room as you come back to Congress. Right now, we have a potential government shutdown in the making, and the Freedom Caucus, yes, we're all better when the government shuts down, aren't we? Freedom Caucus has basically said at least 5 things must be included if a shutdown is to be avoided. Everything from dealing with the weaponization to the wokeness issues, the spending levels, border. All right, so I'm just going to kind of open this up to all of you to jump in here. What are the issues at stake? Are we going to have a shutdown? What are the issues the Freedom Caucus absolutely is not going to budge on?
Yeah, well, I think the issue really at stake is the Senate. The Senate and the White House, they have a view that everything is hunky-dory with the way the federal government is operating, and there should be no changes whatsoever. They passed this massive omnibus spending deal right before Christmas in the lame duck session when we took back the House majority. They did that with Nancy Pelosi. And I say the Senate because you have Democrat and Republican senators who agreed to that. Members of the House never agreed to that, and we never wanted that package to go forward, but that's what they did. Well, now that we're in the same place again, we've been very clear with the Senate for quite some time, there have to be substantive changes. Add also to that, we are now projected to have a $2 trillion deficit. $2 trillion, when we are not in any hot war or frankly any military conflict around the globe, and at the same time, the pandemic has long been over. So if you're running $2 trillion deficit, Fitch Ratings just downgraded our debt, there have to be some substantive changes. The Senate's position is clean continuing resolution and funding the government even more than what we funded it last year. It just simply doesn't make any sense. And so if there's going to be a shutdown, it's because the Senate is going to create one.
All right.
Yeah. It's been reported in the press now. We've been asked questions about it on the Hill. A handful of us have been in negotiations with other members of the Republican conference on the other side of our conference to try to find that cohesive agreement amongst us as Republicans overall that we can stand for. In my view, border security is that issue. What is happening in the country right now? There was a protest rally in Staten Island, New York, over the migrant crisis in New York City. You have a difference of opinion that is basically a Cold War difference, which could become a hot war difference depending on what happens between the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, and the White House. You have a president of the United States who is too busy taking too many naps and has no control over the bully pulpit whatsoever. And I would add, his staff does not want him to have the bully pulpit. They want to keep him away from everybody and away from the press. At the end of the day, power kind of does abhor a vacuum. And there is a real opportunity in this vacuum of lack of leadership in the United States where a key, strong position on border security by House Republicans gives us a new leverage piece in the light of the fact that Joe Biden is just simply terrible at his job and has no ability to stand in front of the American people and explain his position for why the southern border is what it is. He cannot do that. Kamala Harris cannot do that. Karine Jean-Pierre cannot do that. And even the press can't do it because in the streets of New York, the reporters are stepping over migrants sleeping in the streets on their way to their cushy studios to report the news. So that gives us an opportunity to really engage in that, but Republicans have to be unified. And that's why I'm saying we have members who are engaged in those negotiations to bring that compromise. So whether you're a member from New York, a member from California, a member from Texas, or Illinois, or Florida, we say this is the thing, border security, that must be achieved.
Okay.
So, being on oversight, first of all, Chairman Comer, Jamie Comer, has done a fantastic job on this. Chip is 100% right. He should be applauded. He really should be. Because coming in, one of our first meetings was about suspicious activity reports at the Department of Treasury. Folks, I say this sometimes, but not enough. There are suspicious activity reports that are sent from every financial institution to the Department of Treasury. Under every presidential administration, Congress has had full ability to go to Treasury, request those documents, and read those documents in full until Joe Biden became president of the United States. He is the first president who decided to change the Department of Treasury internal regulations that would block Congress from viewing these reports. Even Maxine Waters threw a hissy fit over this for a short amount of time. Then she got back in line, Jody. She got back in line. But she threw a fit about it initially because this had never occurred. Donald Trump did not block Congress's ability. Barack Obama did not block Congress's ability. George W. Bush did not block Congress's ability, but Joe Biden did the second he became president of the United States. That is the first thing that begged us to ask this simple question: what do you have to hide? And from that point going forward, we have followed the evidence. Like, we know that we have members and voters in the Republican base who want to see impeachment happen 4 months ago. But the thing we have to respect is the actual process of the House and actually the institution of the House of Representatives. What Nancy Pelosi did was damaging to the Republic, and it was damaging to the stature of the House of Representatives. A true process is letting the evidence speak for itself. That's what we've been doing. Impeachment inquiry, like Chip and like Mary say, is going to expand our powers. Where does this go? I firmly believe, having been knee-deep in these investigations now, that they on purpose set up a public corruption scheme to hide Joe Biden while collecting millions of dollars in the process. I personally think you're not going to see a check written to Joe Biden, but what I think you're going to see are areas where Joe Biden was basically having his bills paid, and he was luxuriating off of the fact that he allowed his son to sell access to his office. And I also believe that did not stop when he was vice president. It continued on into the early days of his presidency.
Wow, it's going to be interesting to watch that. One question that I have, and of course, Byron, you and I served on oversight together, and we saw this issue time and again, and I'm sure you're seeing it even more, each of you are. But now that the indictments are coming forward for Hunter, how much of that is going to be used by the Department of Justice to say, oh, we now have an investigation underway, so we cannot cooperate because we have our investigation going under? How do you get around this? Does this impeachment inquiry go beyond the jurisdictions of that type of scenario, or are they going to use it to obstruct you from getting the information you need?
Well, real quick, I think to quote our good friend Mark Levin, the Department of Justice is really the Department of Injustice. They have been obstructing justice over at DOJ. They have been blocking and tackling for Hunter and Joe for 6 years now. This has been going on. So this is not a new phenomenon because we've retaken the House. They've been blocking and tackling for a long time. I personally believe at this point that the impeachment inquiry has the ability to step over the indictment. Now it's the gun charge indictment with respect to Hunter Biden, because our focus has nothing to do with the gun charge. Our focus is on the financial ties between Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and I will also add Jim Biden, the president's brother, because he's involved in this too. He just never gets talked about. So these are financial ties between those three and other members of the Biden family. That, in my view, has nothing to do with the indictment that came out the other day from the Department of Justice. There's one thing that the Department of Justice, in my view, should definitely be looking at, and that is the fact that Hunter Biden violated FARA. The Foreign Agents Registration Act, he violated that very, very clearly. He did not register very, very clearly. But I don't believe the Department of Justice is going to get into that, because if they get into that, now the question becomes, did Joe Biden know and help to facilitate his son representing foreign interests by letting him ride on Air Force Two everywhere that he went? The only thing I would add to this is that we wouldn't be in this position if you guys weren't fervent in your desire to see change in this nation. If the families, if the church had continued, in my view, to put its head in the sand and not respond to this stuff, we would have no ability to do what we're doing up here on Capitol Hill. The second thing I would say is these culture issues, which the left always accuses us of starting culture wars, the truth is they are the ones that start culture wars, and we respond to the offensive nature of their acts. The response now is gone beyond party lines, in my view. This is now a response where you have Muslim men, you have black men, you have Hispanic men who are looking at this and saying they want no parts of this. They want their children to be left alone. They do not want the seepage of indoctrination in our schools. They actually see the true value of families. And now there's even this subtle movement amongst young women now, where they're looking at some of the radicalism associated with the feminism movement and saying, wait a minute, actually having family and having a husband and having children is a good thing for quality life and the future of our economy and the future of our country. These are all positive developments, but it's not possible without you guys standing firm and talking to your friends and your fellow parishioners and congregants and saying, there is nothing wrong with standing firm on the things that we believe. I tell people all the time, you could pray all day, but my Bible says faith without works is dead.
All right, we've got just a couple of minutes left, and this is a key, though. It is pray, vote, stand. It's all of this combined. Byron, let me come to you, because the thought came to me with this. FACE Act supposedly is to protect both the abortion business and the pro-life clinics and churches, but we are seeing it really be used to target pro-life clinics and churches and so forth. I mean, we have over 100 churches targeted, nothing being done, while the slightest little thing that's done to an abortion clinic, I mean, you'd think the sky is falling down. Are we going to be able to turn the corner? And Mary, I'd like to get your response on this as well from the Department of Justice.
I think we can, but it starts with two things. First is we have to have a change of presidential administration. That goes without saying. The second thing is the next Attorney General, the job is going to be to completely clean out the political ranks at Main Justice and the FBI. True accountability must come to the Department of Justice. Listen, wrongdoing must be prosecuted across the board. It cannot have a different face depending on the party or the ideology you subscribe to. Because if that becomes the case, the entire rule of law will fall apart and we will lose the republic that we all love. And then whoever becomes AG, mission one for that person is to clean out the political ranks at Main Justice so we can have true justice in America.
Good deal. Let me just say to y'all, thank you. I miss being in the battle with you, but I thank God that you are still in the battle. And we pray for you like you don't know.
You're still in the battle with us.
Hey, I know.
You're not.
I know. I'm not saying otherwise, but being in the battle with y'all day after day after day. And we are extremely grateful. FRC wants to provide a voice for you to get out in the midst of a cancel culture. We're putting together a system that will enable your voice to continue regardless of what happens. I want to encourage each of you to pray for this group, the Freedom Caucus, and there are others who are not part of the Freedom Caucus, but this group primarily is the one standing, fighting, taking the shots day after day after day. So if you are able, I'm going to ask you to stand and express your appreciation for these three here and the Freedom Caucus.